Welcome to the Messy Middle Road Trip podcast. We are celebrating our 88th episode as we approach our 2-year anniversary. From the beginning, Janine and I wanted to create a space for women to celebrate accomplishments, find the joy, embrace the pivot, step into your potential, and create a life filled with good health, laughter, and passion. We've had the honor of speaking to women from around the globe that are doing just that. Women who are willing to hop in the convertible with us to share their stories and inspire our listeners to navigate the twists and turns on this midlife journey, because we all need a road trip buddy. It has been a privilege to work with my friend Janine to create this podcast and build an amazing community of women that vibe with our content. For those of you that subscribed and have been following our journey, you will know that Janine has decided to step away from the podcast to pursue a new venture with a travel business partnership. She and friend of the podcast, Amy Kaufman, have created Janine and Amy's Travel Experiences to curate once-in-a-lifetime trips. We wish Janine and Amy all the best and have already put in the request to have them on the show as guests in the near future. As I sat alone in the convertible, I was faced with two choices: continue the podcast as a solo road tripper, or to find the perfect co-host to fill Janine's shoes. I am thrilled to welcome my friend Sandra Costello to the show. I discovered Sandra and her local photography business through mutual friends and decided to attend her Rock the Black Dress event in November of last year. It was a fun evening of networking and supporting women-owned small businesses with the perk of getting a gorgeous headshot. I was determined to have Sandra on the show as a guest, and we had so much fun talking about the art of being yourself. You'll want to check out episode 77 if you haven't listened. Without further delay, I'd love to welcome Sandra to the show and get this epic road trip started. This is an episode you won't want to miss, so hop in and let's hit the road.
I'm Sandra.
And I'm Nicole, and we're entrepreneurs,
Wives.
a mom,
A favorite auntie.
creative souls,
And women who are fearlessly navigating the middle of life.
We created a community of women over 40 who embrace the past, appreciate where we are now, and take action to live our best life, because it's all about the journey. Hi, Sandra.
Hey, this is so fun. I'm so excited. I'm going to burst.
I'm so glad to have you here. I'm so happy you decided to ride shotgun with me, and I cannot wait to dig in and let our listeners know a little bit about you. So I'm going to do a little Q&A, but we'll go back and forth, so I won't put you on the hot seat for the entire time. But okay. I would love for you to share with our listeners a little bit about your background and why you decided to take me up on this crazy offer of co-hosting this podcast with me.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just want to say to listeners that when Nicole called me, she barely finished saying what she was saying when I came to the realization that she was asking me to do this, and I immediately said yes. So my background is a little bit unusual in terms of saying yes to doing a podcast, but I'll get into it. I am a portrait photographer out of East Hampton, Massachusetts, and my main subject are women. I love photographing women both in a professional sense and in a personal way. And a lot of what is happening when women come to me is that they are transforming the way that they see themselves. And it is really beautiful on both sides of the camera. So that piece of it is really about working with women, watching them become the person that they've always wanted to be, and exploring that a little further. I think the other part of it is that over the last 3 or 4 years, I've really become very interested in public speaking. And at first, when I said yes to the idea of getting out there and talking to crowds, I was like, what is this about? I'm not quite sure. And then I realized it is about connection. It is about getting to know people. It is about sharing what I do and how I think that that benefits women. So those two pieces come together, and to be able to talk about that more with a natural curiosity for others and excitement for life, it seemed like a good fit.
Absolutely. I love that. And I will say that the headshots that you took at the Rock the Black Dress, the one for me personally, and just you have a knack for extracting who the person really is that you are photographing. And I love that. You just have this way about you that just allows your subject to relax and just be genuinely themselves with no fear, and be a little brave in front of the camera, because we often hide and shrink, and we're the ones behind the camera normally, not wanting to be in front of, be the subject. So I love that you have that ability to, like you said, make those connections and really get to know the person that you're working with, and really have that beautiful exchange, that energetic exchange. Because yeah, you have to.
One of the things I learned early on is that when I was photographing people I knew, they automatically trusted me and knew that I was going to capture them in the best light. So the question was, how could I quickly engage with new clients so that they also felt like I had their back, I was going to make sure that they looked awesome, and I got them out of their head. Because that's really what happens. Like when we get in our head, all of a sudden we're like, not really ourselves, we're not being our best self. And when I can get people out of their head, that's when they start to radiate happiness, radiate joy, whatever it is about them that they want to show to the world. And that was really neat to watch happen.
That's so cool. I love that. I love it. Well, and I love that we're going to tap into our creative sides with this co-hosting partnership, because that's something I don't often share, is that I definitely have an artistic background, an artistic eye. I grew up with a grandmother that loved to paint and draw. And so she shared that love of that medium with me. But I've been trying to become published as a children's book writer for going on 12 years now.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's sort of another little kind of side thing. So I love that we're kind of tapping into that creative piece, and that you're going to energize that for me and hopefully motivate and inspire me to get my butt in the chair and write some more.
Oh my God, I would love to see that happen for you. That sounds super exciting.
I am excited. So yeah, I think this is going to be the same road trip that our listeners know and love, with a little bit of detour and some fresh perspective, and maybe some fresh ideas for who we want to have on for guests, and sort of what road we want to take with this, and both highlighting local women that are in our valley area in Western Massachusetts, but also women who are doing really cool things and have amazing stories to tell. So I cannot wait to see how that unfolds.
Well, and I was going to comment really quickly on that. I mean, what's so interesting right now during this time is that people are connecting more than they ever have over Zoom, over FaceTime, whatever it is. So the beauty of all of that is we don't have to just look to people in our area, but we could talk to anyone, anywhere. Yeah. And that'll be really, really fun.
I love it. I love it. So speaking of that, can you share with the listeners some ideas and topics that you would love to tackle on the show?
Yeah, well, okay. So let me first off by saying I'm turning 50 next week. Okay. So I'm coming to midlife, right?
What a way to celebrate with something big and brave and audacious. I love it.
Totally. So that is coming up, and I really feel like as I have been leading up to this age, especially over the last 5 years, some of the things that really interest me are body positivity, because we spend so much time railing on ourselves that we're not this or we're not that. Whatever it is, I often feel like it's a waste of time. And not that I'm saying we should punish ourselves for that. Like, these things happen. Like, we're just, sometimes we're going to struggle. But sure. I am really working hard to change the perspective of how I see myself and how I love myself. Because life is short. And I feel like I don't have time to be wasting time. And I want to really embrace the person that I am and all of the people that I come in contact with. So body positivity, self-love, having more joy in your life, being brave, and saying no,
What
right?
is
Like,
it to say no?
I think that saying yes seems like it would be an easy thing to do, and it is too easy sometimes. So saying no and dropping things off the to-do list because maybe we don't actually want to do those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it doesn't serve us and we're
Right.
just filling our plates to be busy and perpetuate that busyness, and if it's not filling our cup, then we need to do some self-evaluating.
Well, because when we say yes to one thing, we say no to another. And
Mm-hmm.
we have to balance, like, what is it that we really want to do? So I'm excited to meet women who are really like, knee deep into the things that they love to do and how they got there.
Absolutely. And sharing those stories and becoming a piece of the fabric of that story with a conversation, I think is so exciting.
Yeah.
And I know the previous guests that we've had, I always felt such a thrill when they said yes to doing the podcast
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a time commitment to sit with us and have that conversation, and it can be scary for people that aren't used to being in the limelight in that capacity. And again, like you said earlier with the public speaking, and it's not necessarily everybody's jam, but I love the women that are willing to step outside their comfort zone and share their story, because you never know who is on the listening end that is going to be inspired or motivated to maybe take a step forward in whatever theme we're working with, that it could be life-changing. And I love the potential for that, which is
Yeah, the
so cool.
potential, right? Like, that's where all the goodness is. It's like that potential. And when we say yes, we don't know what's coming. I mean, I just said yes to do this podcast. I have no idea what's coming down the road.
Absolutely. You're just holding on for dear life, and the map is flying out the window, and we're just going with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. So who would be a dream guest that you would love to have on the show?
Well, if and if any of our listeners have listened to my podcast, which I did a couple of months ago, one of the people that I wanted to take on my road trip was Lady Gaga.
Oh,
And I get a lot of inspiration from her because I think that she's incredibly talented, both as a singer and as a performer, as an actress.
mm-hmm.
But more than that, I really love how she gives to others. And so to be able to sit and hang out with her and talk with her about her life and where she is right now,
Mm-hmm.
that would be a super thrill.
I love that. And I had the opportunity to go to her concert at Fenway Park in Boston with my husband and my two daughters. This was a few summers ago. And she was amazing, amazingly talented musically with her instruments and her voice. And also, I loved the vibe of her concert, because she basically said, if you are not open-minded and you are not filled with love to accept others around you in this stadium, no matter what their skin color, no matter what their religion, no matter what their race, no matter what country they come from, all of that, she's like, then you don't belong here in this space. She said, because this is the vibe I'm putting out there, and this is a safe place.
Yeah.
And my husband said to me afterwards, and he's very musically inclined, and he said, I wasn't sure what to expect because he's a Grateful Dead fan. So that's a total like 180, right? For Lady Gaga, with like the dance show and the costumes and the theatrical piece. But he said afterwards, I am blown away by her talent, her showmanship, who she was as a person, like who she showed up as a human. So I would love that road trip, and I think we'd have to have the radio off because we would just need her to sing.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
When she put up with my singing voice, I'd be okay with
that. Yeah, I think she's a neat person, and I think she has a lot to contribute to the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm going to put out there, and I had mentioned this to you earlier. So Alanis Morissette, that we all grew up on, I can remember post college just binging her music. And she just came out with a brand new album, and she was supposed to go on tour, and COVID shut everything down. But I love that she is in midlife, totally reinventing herself. I mean, we
Yeah,
haven't heard from
yeah,
her because she's been busy building a family and doing her thing. And she did a segment through Zoom on the Jimmy Fallon show, and her daughter was sitting in her lap and totally interrupting her song, which was the cutest thing ever, because her reaction to that, she wasn't upset. She didn't pull a mommy dearest. She wasn't trying to get the child off her lap. She embraced it. She interrupted her own lyrics to talk to her daughter. And she had a big smile on her face, and she was sharing that moment. And as a mom, looking at that, thinking, oh, how proud she's going to be of her reaction when she looks back on that 10, 15, 20
absolutely.
years from now,
Yeah,
because she didn't put her daughter aside. She embraced where she was at this crazy time with COVID, working, like, take your daughter to work day.
yeah, yeah.
And I would love to hear where she's at in her life and her
Mhm.
journey, and what has happened since that first crazy album hit, her Jagged Little Pill
Yeah.
album, and what has gone on since, and how she's been thinking about her music. And I've been watching some of her videos, and she's totally tapping into her previous looks with the isn't ironic looks, and her costuming, and it's, a little tongue in cheek, and I think she's brilliant. So
Well, and I think it's really interesting, especially, in what we're doing here, talking about the middle of life, and seeing her in that place and watching her. Like, I saw that video of her singing with her daughter, and she was not trying to be perfect. She knew it was a risk, having her daughter in the frame with her. And instead of getting worked up over the daughter kind of interrupting and being a little silly, she just went with it. And I think that says a lot about who she is and who she's become. And it's
mhm.
really interesting when we get to see certain people over time, to see their own journey, to see, where they've been from the beginning of their career to where they are now, not just as a performer, but as a mom and as a woman who, is really kind of coming into her own.
Absolutely. And the fact that, had that whole situation happened 20 years ago, it might have been a different reaction, because I find, here I am approaching 50, and I feel grounded. I feel much more centered. My
Mm-hmm.
reaction to things, I don't get spun up. I just have a sort of a zen calm about the way I react to things, because I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. There have
Yeah.
been things in my life that have happened that gave me great perspective. And I think that's where the power sits in midlife, because you you appreciate that those small moments are everything, and
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
add up. And to be able to have that memory, create that memory where your reaction was turning it into fun, and uh, something that you want to look back on to fondly, as opposed to losing it on camera in front of her.
Well, and I also think that when we gain perspective, when we are able to take a small step back, even if it's in a moment, then we realize we are good. We're good. We don't need to have some crazy reaction because we think that someone will think otherwise of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got it. We've got it. And I think the last piece is to give ourselves grace. I found that happening a lot during COVID when we were at home, and there were days where I was really struggling, and I'd have conversations with my sisters, and they would say, you know what? just take this one as a day. Take this as a day, and then we'll see how we do tomorrow. And I really believe that is super helpful in life in general, because
Absolutely.
every day is a new start, and we are going to have our good and bad days for various reasons. And we can't judge ourselves based on that. We just have to keep moving.
I agree with that. And allowing us to have a little reset button.
Yeah.
And tomorrow's a fresh day. Tomorrow's a new day. Today stunk, that's okay.
Yeah.
If I can show up the way I wanted to show up, that's okay too, because we get a redo tomorrow. And
Yeah.
I love that concept. It really, I have felt that as well going through COVID. There were days where I was like, you know what, today's a napping kind of day.
Yes.
I don't feel like showing up. I'm overwhelmed.
I will say, like, to the napping piece, I gave into that, a few times, which is really unusual for me because I can be pretty disciplined about my workday. And I just thought, you know what, if an hour nap is actually going to make me feel better and be more productive, I'm doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're hard on ourselves sometimes.
Indeed.
When we go outside the norm of what our perception is for how we should be operating on a daily basis. And we need to listen to our bodies sometimes.
Yeah.
God, we're so smart.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. I was listening to a live feed the other day of a photographer I follow, and she talked about taking naps after most of her photo shoots. And I was like, I love that. Why am I not doing that? Because my photo shoots require a lot of energy.
Sure.
And I do find myself pretty tired afterwards. So I thought, ooh, she's giving me permission to take care of myself.
Absolutely. And depending on whether she sees herself as an introvert or an extrovert, I know a lot of my friends who are introverts, they have to force themselves out of that box to interact and to do their job. And then that can just suck the life right out of you. So having that time to reset and really just fill that battery back up, recharge, I think is super important. So I love it.
Yeah. And I think during this time of COVID, it is an interesting opportunity to experiment with that reset button because, if someone had said to me, why don't you take 3 months off, reflect on your business, take naps when you need to, shower if you feel like it. You can wear the same clothes 3 days in a row, no problem.
Eat some cereal for dinner.
Like if someone said that to me, I'd be like, that is crazy. I would never think to do that. That seems very irresponsible. But after having that time to really reflect and make some changes, my gosh, like what a beautiful thing. So anyways, silver linings.
Absolutely. Actually, it's a great segue because on your Facebook page, you posted a day or so ago, you had a question. If you knew the pandemic was coming, what things would you have done differently before things closed down? And I loved reading the responses that people put out there.
Yeah.
What would be something that you would have done differently?
I mean, it's hindsight 2020, whenever you can look back, it probably changes what you would do. But the one thing I would absolutely have done and have been trying to make happen for the last year, I really, really want a portrait with me and my mom and my 2 sisters. And I had been working toward making that happen. And it just like, both of my sisters have kids and they're busy and we're all, an hour and a half to 3 hours away from each other. So it's not that easy. And just really having that one particular portrait of the women in my life who I'm super close with is really meaningful to me. So when we're able, that's happening immediately. What would you have done differently?
Well, it's interesting because, my husband and I, we've been married since 99. And as life happens, careers, and in our case, raising our 2 daughters, things get busy. And we have always made it a pact that we would travel together once a year, just the 2 of us. And we've really stuck with that. I think there might have been one year that we didn't. but we either try to go for a weekend or a week away. And we did that from the time that our oldest was a year old. And I can remember friends saying to us, I've never left my children. How could you leave your children?
Uh-huh.
And at the time when we left, we actually went on a cruise. Was the first trip. It was a family cruise with my father and his family. And my daughter was being a pill. She was angry and she was fussy. And I took one look at my husband and I said, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we needed that time to reconnect and just have uninterrupted conversations and get back to who we were pre-kids. And that is so important. I think it doesn't matter if you have children or not, that you really need to clear away the noise and make the time to travel with, or if you can't travel, go do a date day, go do something, go out to eat, go for a hike, go for a long drive on a Sunday and get coffee or whatever it is. Just make that time. And I think we didn't do enough of that, right? Probably from the holidays, right leading up to COVID, because we just got busy and then COVID hit and we were the four of us and the two dogs all stuck in the house together. And because everything shut down, we weren't going anywhere. We were gathering more as a family to eat, which was nice because our schedules were normally crazy where my husband was traveling or the girls were at dance and we were eating at different times and not really sitting down to have those family meals like I had wanted to, like we did when the kids were younger. But I think doing that reconnection with my husband and trying to book a trip before everything hit, because I don't know when we'll be traveling again.
Yeah.
At least to the capacity that we would like to, because we've done amazing trips to Europe and out to California to wine country. And again, we always find the laughter. We find telling stories about when we were dating and, just silly things and just really remembering why it is we love each other so much and why we're such a good match.
Yeah.
And always come away, like you said, I think it's just like the napping. You come away from that feeling refreshed and that you've got a new lease on your relationship and that things are just gelling again and you're reconnecting, because there can come a point in time when, especially at midlife, you're looking at your partner across the kitchen table going, is this person my roommate? Or are we really engaging here and keeping that alive? Because relationships take work.
Well, I was just going to say, I really think that when you see friendships, romantic relationships, whatever it is, work relationships, like the ones that are successful are the ones that take a tremendous amount of work and going back and forth. And I think it is really important to have a date night, to have a date vacation, like whatever it is that you, whenever you're able to set aside time to reconnect, it is super important to relationships, especially romantic ones.
Yes. Yeah. We need to stay plugged in.
100%. Yeah,
100%.
Indeed.
Well, before we sign off, I would just love to talk about a few of your favorites. So I would love to know, what's the favorite book that you're reading right now or that you just read?
I'm gonna tell you about two. So the one that I just read is a book called Beloved, and it is about Sonia Sotomayor, who is a judge on the U.S. Supreme Court. She is the first Hispanic woman and the third woman to be appointed to that role. And this is a story about her life thus far. And it is so, so good. I really enjoyed that. And then the second book I want to tell you about, I read a couple of times. It is written by Marie Forleo, who isn't she so great? Yeah, great. Business and life coach. She has a book called Everything is Figure-Outable.
Yes.
And it is very inspiring. It's what I love about it is that you can read it one chapter at a time and you get little nuggets from it. And then also I think it's the kind of book that you can go back to over and over again. So Marie Forleo, double thumbs up for her.
Excellent. Well, I'm halfway through a book called Do It Scared
Oh,
by Ruth. I think you pronounce her last name Socoup or Sokup. Um, and the header under the description of the book is finding courage to face your fears, overcome adversity, and create a life you love.
hmm.
And the interesting thing was at the very beginning, she talks about uh, categories about fear and who you are and what your crutch is with
Mm.
different things. And you sort of have to read through and say, okay, this is who am I in this section? And then she identifies different traits for folks who worked through their fears in that way, and then gives tools and tips to overcome that, which
Yeah.
I love because we all operate with some level of fear with doing anything in this lifetime, and to acknowledge it and know where your weakness is and where your strength is, and what to do to take that step, because that really is a big piece of it, and to identify that. So that was so
I'm going to
interesting.
have to put that on my list. That sounds great.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
How about a favorite podcast
Can I list
besides
two?
Messy Middle Road Trip, of course?
Yeah. Well, can I list two additional then?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay. So the first one is How I Built This by Guy Raz, and he is part of NPR. He
Okay.
will interview business owners, entrepreneurs who have started their business, how it began, and where they're at now. And he's got lots of big names like the two kids who started Instagram. He has interviewed the folks who started Crate and Barrel, Eileen Fisher, Kate Spade. Gosh, who else? I mean, you name it. He's got all kinds of interviews about how they began their venture and where they're at now. Some folks have sold their business, so they've moved on, but oh, it is one of my favorite podcasts. So that's one. The second one is called Home Cooking, and that is with Samin. Oh my goodness, why am I've blanked on her last name. Samin created a Netflix series called Heat, Fat, Salt. What's the last one? Heat, Fat, Salt, and oh my gosh. I've gone blank. I'm going to have to grab her book. But she has a cookbook by the same name.
Okay.
Heat, Fat, Salt. People who are listening are screaming at me right now what the fourth one is. Oh my gosh, I don't know what the last one is, but she's incredible. She's an amazing cook, great educator. She has such a passion for food and how you make it, and she wants to get everyone in the kitchen. So she does this Netflix series. There's 4 episodes, and she talks about food. She has a cookbook based on that, and now she has a podcast. And
So interesting to me to think about a podcast about food, because you always see a visual,
yes,
Food Network stuff where you're watching them cook, but
but
it,
she's hilarious.
okay.
She's like really funny, and she's so joyful about the process of cooking. And one of the episodes I listened to was people calling in and saying, okay, so I'm in the midst of COVID. I don't have a lot of things in my cupboard. What would you recommend for a cost-effective dinner? And she can make suggestions, and she does. And she's just so silly, and I don't remember the name of her co-host, but the two of them together really balance out each other. And so I love her because she's just you can't help but smile when you listen to her, and her food is incredible. Like, we have her cookbook, and I have been experimenting with recipes that she has, including fried chicken with this like spicy sauce. Oh my God, I love food. So, it's easy to get into.
Yes, that's fantastic. I would have to say I love Oprah's Super Soul Conversations.
Oh yeah.
She always has such inspiring guests.
Yeah, down with that.
That kind of got me into podcasts, to be honest with you, because
Mm-hmm.
I love her voice, number one. I love how she can just pull stuff out of her guests. Like, she's been doing it for so long. It's so natural. And
Yeah.
she's had some really, I've loved the one she did a sort of a series with Brene Brown. She's had Tom Brady on there. Just so many, just really inspirational podcasts that she's done. I love it. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite. And another one that I love, which is so interesting because it's in the MLM space, is by Fraser Brooks, and it's called the Ninja Podcast.
Ooh.
And Fraser Brooks, he grew up in multi-level marketing. His mom and dad were in it. He did it for a bit, but now he's stepped out of the space. So he's not necessarily connected with a company, but he helps to inspire and train folks that are in that space and how to basically do sales and marketing and build your business without being salesy and weird. And
Yeah.
to just really engage with relationships and connections and how to show up with that. And he has so much energy and he's killing it. And I love listening to him because he gives life lessons along.
Yeah.
I don't think you even have to be in the MLM space to really pick up on what he's putting down. Like
what is MLM?
Multi-level marketing. So it would be direct sales. If you're a distributor for a company, for example, like I am. So if you're an independent consultant for a bigger company, and how to operate your business because it's not a brick and mortar. And how do you do that? How do you reach out through social media? How do you market yourself? How do you brand yourself? Because I am not necessarily my company, but when people think of health and wellness, I hope they think of me because of how I show up and how I present myself. And you want them to build that trust. Like you were saying earlier with your photography business, it's the same thing. I want people to trust me and to know that I am coming at it from a place of service and to help people. And I'm not looking to sell something that, snake oil. I want people to know that it's legit. So that's been a great podcast for me. I love that.
Neat.
How about a favorite television show or movie? Because we all binge some stuff.
Well, I will tell you this. I'm not a big TV person. Like I find myself doing other things, but I love movies. And I think during quarantine, I found myself watching more like a Netflix series. Mm-hmm. So let me think about this for a second. I loved watching Downton Abbey. Did you ever see that?
Yes.
Oh my God. I love that so much. So Downton Abbey was a good one.
As well as the series?
I saw the movie. I thought the movie was good, but I loved the series.
Me too.
So then that segued into The Crown, which was another series that I loved.
In my language. I love those period pieces.
Yeah.
Because it just it transports you. I love it.
And so like if I were to add a third one to that like string, it would be Call the Midwife.
I've heard that's amazing.
Or Call the Midwives, yeah, which is also British, and it's really tender and anyways, I was talking to someone recently. Oh, it was my brother-in-law, and he's like, "So what have you been watching?" I'm like, "You're not going to like anything I'm watching, so I'm not going to tell you, okay?" But I find that I really love the British movies or shows. Like I just totally get into them.
Mm-hmm. I do as well. And I love the humor and just the characters that they're so compelling. I love all of it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
The segue, kind of along the same lines. So I am a huge Outlander fan. And the interesting thing is, so I started reading the book, but then the series came out. So then I watched the series, and the books are big. So I am now listening to, I believe it's book 3 on Audible, even though I'm through, I think it's season 5 for the show, but the books are so different. So I love doing both, but I'm obsessed with Outlander. Now we are in Droughtlander because we have to wait for the next series to come out. It's going to be a bit before we get there, but I love that it goes back to the Highlands of Scotland, 200 years in the past, and they jump through time, and it's so well done. So that was a huge one for me. But a few series that I really got into during COVID that I recorded because I can never watch them when they're live. So then I can kind of binge through them. One was Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Oh, I think I remember seeing that.
Oh, it was brilliant. And the premise is that she has an MRI during an earthquake and
Oh,
something goes wonky, and it basically makes her an empath. But she can then hear people's heart songs out loud as a musical number,
oh my God. That's
which is
crazy.
brilliant. So she could hear her boss as she's singing I Don't Get No Satisfaction with her crew of people that work for her doing dance moves in the back.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. And so she looks at this as a gift to be able to help people through what they're processing in their life, whether that's sorrow or confusion or joy or whatever. She kind of gets into the emotion of it and asks those hard questions and steps outside her comfort zone. And then it happens to her as well, where others can hear her heart song. So, and through all of this, she is dealing with losing her father, who she's very close with. He has a brain, and I cannot remember the condition that he has, but he cannot speak. And he has to speak through a typing mechanism. And so it's the processing of seeing his relationship with his wife and relationship with her and her brother. And the interesting thing is that the creator actually went through this with his father and created it so he could share his experience and how that all processed out. So, but she can hear her father's heart song and communicate with him that way, even though he can't speak. So it was just beautifully done, and it's been renewed for a second season. So I'm so excited for that. So that was a big one. And another one that I watched that was really interesting, but it was a one and done series, was called Council of Dads.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It was brilliant. And for those of you that are Walking Dead fans, the character, the woman that played Lori, is the main character in this. And the gentleman who plays her husband was on That Thing You Do, that Tom Hanks movie. He was sort of the star of it. And he plays the husband, the dad, who's battling cancer. And he knows there's a chance he will die. And he has 5 children. And he asks these men in his life, these 4 men, if they will be a council of dads for the first year after he's gone, to help his wife navigate all
very sweet. Yeah.
It was very sweet. And it was so cool because it was filmed down in the Carolinas. And so I loved the setting of it, and I wish it had been renewed because it was a lovely show. And again, I love the relationships and the storytelling. So yeah, those were some of my COVID binges.
I love them.
I love. Well, Sandra, thank you for coming on with me today and doing a little intro. And I'm just so excited to see where this goes with you. And I cannot wait to, share a little bit more with our listeners, and just so that they're aware, our format will remain the same, where we'll invite a guest to join us. So the 3 of us will, or if we have multiple guests, we'll all talk together through Zoom for episodes at least twice a month. And in between, we'll be doing mini podcasts, or like we call mini pods, about our areas of expertise. And I'll be focusing on health and wellness, and Sandra's going to be focusing on photography and the creative process. Sandra, can you share a little bit about what you're going to be talking about on your first mini pod?
Yes. So first I will clear my throat. Sorry about that. So the first mini pod that I'm doing is talking a little bit about some of the things we discussed today. How I became a photographer, what kind of meaning is attached to that process, that connection that I have with my clients, and just talking about some of the things that make me come alive and make the people that I work with come alive. So that'll be interesting just to kind of get into that.
I love it. Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Excellent. Well, Sandra, I'll have you take it away here for our final outro as we finish up today. But again, thank you, listeners, for tuning in and sticking with us on this journey. It's gonna be a whole new whole new detour. I'm excited for it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Messy Middle Road Trip podcast and feel inspired to be brave by stepping outside your comfort zone and doing things like deciding to co-host a podcast. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe on iTunes. And if you want to show some real love, which we would love to see, please give us a rating and review. Pop on over to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube to keep the conversation going.
And if you are a woman navigating the middle of life and have a story to tell, please reach out. We are always looking to meet amazing women and share their journey with our audience. We're looking forward to our next road trip with you. Thanks for riding shotgun. Until next time.